Welcome to another episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. Knock knock. Who's there, old death? Mind ya. Mind ya who? Mind ya Schabusiness. I'm sorry I had to do it. For those of y'all that might be lost, we're talking about Miss Schabusiness today. She's going to be sentenced for the crime of murder. Not to mention chopping up her boyfriend or lover's body, whatever you'd like to call it, and scattering it around his mother's house. I'm not going to go into the full details of the case. We're here strictly for the sentencing. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy this type of content, all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now, I don't think the sentencing is gonna end well when you gotta come in with a mask like that. Jury definitely gonna find you scary and guilty. But regardless, the smoke show must commence. That girl back there mean mugging.
Sentence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Schabusiness, this is your opportunity to address me if there's anything on your mind you'd like to say before I pass sentence.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
That's a nice tie, Your Honor.
Very good. Well then, when passing sentence on cases like this, the court has to consider the factors set forth in State versus Galleon. So I have to consider the gravity of the offense, the character of the defendant, the need to protect the public, as well as other aggravating and mitigating circumstances, including rehabilitative needs and punishment and deterrence, and then craft a sentence in each case that's appropriate. In this case, when I consider the defendant's character, I can say that over the course of this case, I've learned a great deal about you, Ms. Schabusiness. First of all, you were born in Chicago, lived there until you were about age 10, 12 rather. You seem to have had a stable childhood. You were loved by your mother and your father and your brother. And unfortunately, your mother passed away when you were 12, your brother passed away in a vehicle accident, and your dad's incarcerated. But I'm confident that all three of them probably still love you very much.
Man, oh man, a lot of people might be saying to herself, oh, poor girl, her mom died at 12, shortly after her brother died as well, and her father is locked up. This is the reason for why she's acting like this. No, that's not the reason, all right? There's a lot of people out there growing up in foster homes that had horrible foster parents, abusive and all kinds of stuff, and they don't end up chopping people up. To me, there's only two things in this life. You're either a bad egg or a good egg. And it doesn't matter what kind of parents you have, man. It doesn't. Like I said, it could matter sometimes, but for the most part, man, these people are just doing bad things.
Her father's employment was transferred to Green Bay when she was about 12 years old, and hence began the contact Ms. Schabusiness had with this community. She attended Bayport High School. At about 16, she moved to Texas to live with her grandfather. She graduated from high school in Cotulla, Texas, and eventually came back to Green Bay because she missed her father and her brother, which again doesn't surprise me any because, as I've indicated, I think they both love her very much. She's worked in this community. I read over the pre-sentence investigation report that I ordered, and that outlines some work experience that she has, and I think that's a favorable character trait because, quite frankly, not everyone that lives in this community does work. And I think it indicates someone who wants to get out and support themselves and not make anybody else do it.
The judge is absolutely correct. And there's another thing that shows a great wealth of character. Graduating high school, believe it or not, man, a lot of kids these days, they give up. Dropping out right before they graduate, settling with their GED. But it means a lot to me to hear that someone graduated high school, believe it or not.
She has a limited court record. Certainly we have pretty much the entire extent of her criminal record in front of us here today. But it's a limited record that reflects on character. She's got a family who cares about her. And although sometimes I think people take that for granted, if you sit in this courtroom long enough, you'll realize that you should never take your family for granted because so many people come in sitting in that chair in an orange jumpsuit and have absolutely no one who will come in and say, I'm with her. And that takes a little bit of fortitude to come in and do that. And frankly, today she's got extended family that comes in and does that for her because her direct family are unable to do that for various reasons. And so I think that speaks to Ms. Schabusiness's character, because there's people in this world who find value and worth in her, that they're willing to come in and stand behind her. So I think that reflects on character. I'm cognizant of the fact that she began using drugs at a very young age. Marijuana at age 12, cocaine at around 18, and methamphetamine at around 18 as well. And we've heard a lot of testimony about drug usage.
And that right there, my friends, is where I believe the incubated egg went bad. You'll understand, man, certain mind-altering substances can cause you to think in a totally different way, man. Not even you. It's not you no more. I know for a fact, man, there was times where I did certain things and it didn't matter. I was willing to risk life in prison over some of the situations I was in, because my mind was completely far from what it's supposed to be. Say no to drugs, kids. It's stupid.
At around 18 as well, and we've heard a lot of testimony about drug usage. And I don't have any doubt that that has an impact on how people conduct their lives and behave from moment to moment. But
Very
quite
true.
frankly, as far as this incident and these events go, I think I've spoken to this already in prior hearings, but the fact of the matter is, when I watched the interview with law enforcement shortly after these events, I observed someone who was lucid, understanding what was going on, was tracking what was being asked of her.
She did a slight head nod. She ain't in agreement with the judge on this. Look closely.
I observed someone who was lucid, understanding what was going on, was tracking what was being asked.
You see that? Not a head nod, but a shake. You know, she didn't agree that she was completely lucid. Probably why she didn't take the stand and speak about the situation either is because she's going to be appealing it. Yep, she's going to try to beat this puppy on appeal on grounds of insanity. I know it.
I observed someone who was lucid, understanding what was going on, was tracking what was being asked of her. Her answers were tracking. Everything seemed to be together at that moment. I don't really see the influence of drugs now. It doesn't mean it's not there, but I didn't see it in that interview, which is the most close proximity to the events of this night that we have, is that interview. And right then and there, she seemed to be very lucid in what she was doing. But I don't doubt, but there's a long history of drug use, serious drug use. Methamphetamine is a plague in this community, and it seeped into this case as well. And it's something that we have to constantly fight against. It's not a battle that the system wins often, but we're making some headway. And every little step we take is perhaps one life that can be saved as a result of that drug coming into this community. But it's a big problem, and it is in this case. I've heard about Ms. Schabusiness's mental health history. I've read stacks and stacks of mental health records that have come in as recently as a few days ago. And I read them over, which allowed me to learn even more about Ms. Schabusiness and about her character and who she is as a person.
And if she does happen to appeal on insanity, this is probably the best thing that she could possibly have. Lots of records of her going through these psych meetings.
I've heard about her son who lives in Texas, and I'm absolutely convinced that she loves her son. And I'm going to say more about that in a minute, but that's a piece of who she is because she's a mom. And I think that is a title that is a precious title, and it's an important title. I'm also convinced that a person comes into this court with their life up to that point in time as a demonstration of their character. What kind of a person are they? What do they bring to the table as a member of the human community? Not just this community, but as a community, the human community as a whole. And there are some things about Ms. Schabusiness that speak well of that.
Hold on, man. Ain't there just one community? Why did he have to stipulate human? I hate to jump off track here, you know. I'm just using my imagination off that lingo he said, but what if like 30 years from now they got like aliens on the stand getting smoked to life? Oh man, I know, I'm going way out there right now, but still, why are you gonna say the human community?
No one is responsible for where they come from, but you are responsible for where you're going. So there's a lot of tragedy that has occurred in Miss Schabusiness's life. There really is. I've already reflected on some of that. And it almost seems as if you could apply the phrase, she never had a chance. But as I said, you're not responsible for where you come from, but you are responsible for the choices you make about where you're going.
There you go.
And Mr. Business has got to be held responsible for that, and this is the
Yep.
the ending of a process that is doing just that. At the same time, I'm absolutely convinced that irrespective of the sentence that Ms. Schabusiness gets, which in light of these charges is going to be a life sentence. Every human being has the ability to move forward and find meaning in their life, and Ms. Schabusiness has that opportunity.
Oh man, he went straight to the point, and still she has to sit there and listen to him speak for the next 20 minutes. As soon as he said that, man, I would have been shaking ferociously in that mask.
But all of those things I reflect on when I consider the character of this defendant. Next, I move on to the gravity of the offense. And I sit in this chair often, and I address situations where people have lost their lives, or people have been violated terribly, and I always indicate that really the offense in this case can't be overstated, and that seems very appropriate to say that in most cases.
But not this one.
And such a death or a violation, but in this case it seems different.
Yeah.
In this case,
Medieval.
you seem to run out of superlatives when describing what happened in this case. You really do.
Superlatives.
The list of superlatives don't seem to measure up to what you see and what you hear about, and what we heard about in the trial. This crime offends human decency. It offends
Yeah, it does.
human dignity. And
Yep.
it offends the human community. It really
Yes,
does.
sir, Your Honor. Human
When someone
community.
loses their life needlessly, it's tragic. It really is. It's tragic for family and friends and community. When
Human
life is
community.
taken by from a person in the fashion that it was in this case, where the victim's remains are cut up and packaged in containers, it's difficult to identify a human nature in those activities. It really is. It's very troubling. It's difficult to recognize the general belonging that most people have for their community.
You know, I'm just gonna say this really quick, all right? When you kill somebody, you break the ultimate top-notch law. There's nothing worse than that. So after people do these things, a lot of them have this clarity, right? And they say to themselves, well, how am I going to dispose of this body? And a lot of people say it's much easier to do it if you chop it up. But, you know, the judge is going to say it's completely heinous, and it is 100% disgustingly bad. But unfortunately, that is the route that a lot of people take when they're trying to hide the body. But I read that she left the parts of his body throughout the house and in a vehicle. That is not a sign of her trying to hide something. That's just a sign of, if you were to ask me, insanity, man. Like, who would do that?
It's difficult to recognize community in anything that happened in this case. This is a small community that we live in, where the web of relationships almost encompass everyone who lives here, such that people look out for each other and care when something bad happens to one of our members.
Share
In a
sugar
broader
and everything.
sense, the community we exist in is the human community, as I've reflected on.
Not again, not
These
again.
actions are foreign to all of that community. You can get a sense of it and a feel for it, but there's no really way to express the gravity of this offense. So the need to protect the public is an important factor the court needs to struggle with as well. And in light of what I've just indicated, I think it's plain that there is a need to protect the public in this case. As I said, this behavior seems so removed from the human community as to be unpredictable.
I'm sorry, but this is really bugging me. I mean, what other kind of community is there? Are we talking about the buffalo community or maybe the giraffe community? I mean, I don't know. Why does this guy keep saying the human community?
Where this kind of a thing is possible, absolutely anything is possible. And
Yep.
from that, the public needs protection.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yep. Protect us,
I've
Your Honor.
outlined, what I think are aggravating circumstances in this case. There are mitigating circumstances, as I've said. There's things about Ms. Schabusiness regarding her upbringing and what brought her here, the struggles she's had with some mental health issues, and struggling perhaps in the context of those issues with a family who wasn't always as present as they could have been. Those are mitigating sets of circumstances. But all of those things weigh into what this court has to address.
Adam Zapp on that guy.
So when I consider what is an appropriate sentence, first, I think the law requires that I at least look at least some of these cases. Count 1, that's the first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater. It's a Class A felony. Going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision. I believe that's appropriate in light of the findings that I've already made. As far as count 2, mutilation of a corpse as a repeater, a Class F felony, I'm going to adopt the recommendation of the pre-sentence investigation writer, 7.5 years of initial confinement followed by 4 years of extended supervision. That'll be consecutive to count 1.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a life sentence. And she's young, man, so she's going to have a long ride in that penitentiary. Usually, in men's side of things, if you get sentenced to a dramatic amount of time, that's where you're going to high-level prison right off the break. And then when things have simmered down for a few years and people tend to forget a bit, then they'll drop you down to maybe a level 4 or level 3 at the lowest, medium, and that's strictly only if you have good behavior in prison. But until the next episode, I got plenty more content coming your way, so stay tuned. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, y'all be easy, be safe, and stay free. And stay the hell away from drugs, man. It's trash.